All right, here we go again. Another episode of American Jew Podcast coming at you. My name is Jordan Ferber.
I'm Jonathan Randall. Hope everybody's doing well, having a nice week.
I hope everybody enjoyed watching the Oscars.
I didn't watch it, so I didn't enjoy it at all.
I mean, I would say it was pretty good. It didn't slap this year, but you know.
Oh, hey.
And, you know, Spielberg lost, so, you know, I guess you could say the Jews don't run Hollywood.
Oh, man. Okay. I'm sure there's plenty of Jewish people that still won.
There probably were some Jews that were
There definitely were a bunch that won.
There are Jews that are everywhere all at once.
Yeah, apparently we are everywhere all at once. We're trying to be, at least. At least a lot of anti-Semites say that we are everywhere all at once when it comes to controlling entertainment business and banking.
I mean, I would like to live in a multiverse where, you know, you think that there's probably a multiverse that has no anti-Semitism in it.
I wonder, but no, I think even in the multiverse, there's anti-Semitism everywhere.
That's how ubiquitous and
Anti-Semitism
far-reaching
is.
anti-Semitism
I mean,
is.
here in Stanford University, I guess there's some anti-Semitism where people were drawing swastikas and a likeness of Hitler.
I guess, yeah, on a dry erase board.
Oh,
So,
was it dry? They also, I guess, put it on somebody's door.
right, and in the bathroom. There was also, it was in like a handicap bathroom also.
I mean, in the bathroom stall, there's all types of craziness. I feel like you can't take any graffiti vandalism seriously that's inside a bathroom stall.
I mean, the Nazis did kill, you know, the handicapped and the infirm. So in a handicap stall, that, you know, that
really stinks.
That does track.
Yeah, all right. I didn't think of that. I mean, I feel like we got to do something with the swastika. I feel like Jews got to try to, like, own the swastika and, like, not let us bother because it's so, like, weak that's what anti-Semites do. Like, they just want to, like, paint the swastika and stuff. And, like, why are we letting it bother us anymore? I feel like we got to take on the swastika like black people took on the N-word.
I don't know. I think it's hard because there's already the backward swastika is like a Hindu symbol, right? Or is it a Buddhist?
I think the regular swastika is that symbol.
Yeah. So I mean, there's already another group that already claims that symbol.
Before Hitler did, it was already used in Buddhism.
In Buddhism. So you know, I don't know. How do we claim it as?
I don't know. Maybe we. I mean, I was going to say maybe we should put it on the Israeli flag, but with the new government that they got going, it kind of tracks a little bit.
Or I guess we could copyright it, so anytime an anti-Semite tries to use it, we still get paid.
That is such a better idea. That is what we should do.
Yeah.
That is more in the spirit of Judaism, actually, I think, as weird as that is to say.
I mean, I feel like it's thinking outside the box, for sure.
Definitely. Thinking outside the swastika, even. Yeah, so that's horrible that, you know, anti-Semites are still doing that, making people in universities feel unsafe. But I feel like
it's happening in Florida,
lazy.
too. I mean, there's
more in Florida?
Yeah,
Always in Florida.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing that we talked about about a month ago that was happening, I think, in Georgia, where they were handing out and distributing anti-Semitic flyers.
And there are new pamphlets.
There are new pamphlets.
That happened like this weekend.
Yeah, in Florida.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, these are the kinds of
things. And what do they say? Is it just swastikas?
It was the same kind of anti-Semitic Jewish tropes that they put in people's driveways.
Well, I mean, it's always the same ones. Like, so what? These were just the same. Like,
it was basically
Jews control the banking and the media.
The same type of rhetoric. Jews are the devil, and if you disagree with us, you're not American because you don't agree with free speech. You know, it really uses all of the illogic that it can.
And where in Florida did they have this?
I think it was saying that it was like near Palm Beach.
Near Palm Beach. A lot of Jews there. That's not good. That's not what grandmas need when they are going in the morning to get their paper to see some anti-Semitism.
I mean, we talk a lot on the show about how all of the acts of Israel can reflect, you know, poorly upon the Jewish people as a whole, and that can breed more anti-Semitism. I think that this type of anti-Semitism is so ignorant, and it really needs to be stamped out. I don't know what we can do to educate people more, because it really comes from a group of people that are so firmly entrenched in hating Jewish people that they've probably never actually had a real conversation with one.
I mean, I think that these people aren't educated, so I don't think education is going to help them. I think this is kind of like the crazy person's anti-Semitism, which these people kind of are. They're unhinged. They're like the QAnons. They're believing in the dumb conspiracy theories. And actually, one good thing, there was, I guess, one of these people that had these like ridiculous, dumb, you know, Elders of Zion anti-Semitic tropes in Michigan, and he made threats against the government officials in Michigan, and he was arrested. He's been indicted, so that's actually a good thing.
Yeah, we got one.
We got one, but I think that sends a good example. Jack Carpenter III is this guy's name. If you have a third in your name, chances are you're anti-Semitic.
Jack Carpenter sounds like a made-up name, too.
Yeah,
That's
his Twitter handle was @tempered_reason. Should have been like tempered idiot or something like that. This was one of his tweets. I'm heading back to Michigan now, threatening to carry out the punishment of death to anyone that is Jewish in the Michigan government if they don't leave or confess, and now that kind of problem. Because I can legally do that, right? It already doesn't make sense. Like, it goes from like crazy anti-Semitism to just horrible grammar, and then apparently he made a declaration of sovereignty, which claimed a new country was formed in the 9-mile radius of his Tipton home, and he called it like New Israel, by the way.
Wow, has he really done a poll to find out make sure that there are no Jews in that 9-mile radius?
I don't know what he did, but he's insane. I guess he had a problem with the Jews, being part of the government there. He made these threats on Twitter, and he got arrested for it, which is good. This kind of dumb anti-Semitism will not stand, and I don't know. I feel like while we definitely have to address it, there's part of us, I think, at this point that has to almost ignore it, I think, because it's we can't let it bother us. That's why these idiot kids keep drawing swastikas, because they're like, oh, look, they're all going to get up in arms, when instead we're just oh, well, squiggly lines, what can you do? We defeated Hitler and we'll defeat you too.
I think it's really terrible that, we have all these people that want attention and they just don't care what for, And, this type of stuff, not only is it historically, really illegal to do this doesn't even follow the rules of grammar.
Well, his tweet, not that, if you're going to look for proper grammar on Twitter, then you're going to have a hard time.
Right.
But anyways, this guy was an idiot, but it's good that he got indicted for just, spreading hate towards Jews, which is kind of like the anti-Semitism that you mentioned, this age-old anti-Semitism that, the Jews are the devils and we drink Christian blood and, we're controlling everything.
And we have horns and we are trying to, get people to turn their evil, their ways to our evil ways.
Oh, is that part of it? Because what are our evil ways? First of all, we don't have horns. Everybody could definitely check. And again, I wish we were controlling the media more, because we need to be doing better with this podcast. And, it's not going great. So we need some of these Jews control the media to, help us get out there and get us some sponsors to do something.
All we're getting is the hate.
We're getting a lot of hate. No, we get some support. People appreciate it, but we need kind of more support. And then I heard of this story about this Israeli who defrauded $47 million from Orthodox Jews. Did you hear about this?
No.
And he just got arrested too.
Finally.
Yeah, this guy's, right? He was doing it for years. His name is Yossi Engel, and he defrauded investors. I guess he pretended that he was a businessman, that he was trying to put up cameras around Los Angeles so he could because of all the anti-Semitism that was happening, and then he was going to buy land in Israel and flip it for profits, and he just ripped everybody off, and he was living this lavish lifestyle. And I'm like, how is this guy raising $47 million and the American Jew podcast can't even raise $1,000, you know?
This guy sounds like a dime store Bernie Madoff.
He kind of was. And then he went back to Israel, and then apparently he came back to the States, and that's where he got arrested. But it's just crazy to me how, you mentioned Israel, and too many Orthodox Jews are just too eager to, throw their money at you.
I mean, that's kind of, I think, what we were talking about last week about how, a lot of Jews have turned Israel into the golden calf that we, worship, and that
I do believe that Israel has become the golden calf.
That there are a lot of Orthodox Jews that blindly throw money at the cause without really looking into who is raising the money.
Absolutely. This is actually a thing that they had, where they had a thing in Washington, D.C. yesterday for Israeli bonds, and they had this guy, Bezalel, I think his name is Bezalel Smowich. I'm saying his name wrong. Bezalel Smotrich, and he's the finance minister in Israel. He's this horrible guy who said that he wanted Horara wiped off the face of the earth. He's made a bunch of other horrible remarks when it comes to LGBT and non-Jewish people. Anyways, and this Israeli bonds, they had this thing, and he came in and he was the speaker, and there were tons of people protesting because of what he had just said.
Right.
A lot of American Jews very upset about it. But again, like, he was still there to, help encourage people to buy Israeli bonds, even though he's like on the wrong side of everything.
Yeah.
So it's great that so many, people went to protest this guy. Bezalel, is that how you say his name? Bezalel Smotrich? He's horrible. And by the way, there's a Bezalel in the Parsha that we're going to get to.
Ooh,
this guy, I guess,
okay.
is named after that Bezalel, who was kind of like the architect of the tabernacle. And this guy's one of the architects of Israel's demise, in my opinion, because he's such a horrible piece of shit.
More like a Jezebel, am I right?
I guess. But before I guess we get into the Parsha, I did want to mention, you started off talking about the Oscars.
Right.
And Chaim Topol,
Tradition.
the actor who starred in the film Fiddler on the Roof and in over, I guess, 3,500 on-stage performances of Fiddler on the Roof, he passed away.
Yes.
Which is kind of sad because, Fiddler on the Roof film, I guess, was a lot, the most exposure, even the play that a lot of non-Jews and even Jews had to seeing themselves kind of portrayed for a long time. Of course, things are different now than when that film came out in the early 70s, I believe.
Right.
But he passed away. I remember seeing Fiddler on the Roof, liking the songs. I guess I was excited as a kid seeing Jewish representation in a film. I hadn't seen a lot of that. That he was Orthodox. He was an Orthodox Jew trying to keep the traditions alive and marrying off his daughters.
Yep. Tradition
and matchmaker, and so he passed away, and he also starred. He was in a James Bond movie. He was in a Flash Gordon movie. I guess he was one of the biggest actors from Israel.
He was a big deal. Who was he in James Bond?
He was in one of the Roger Moore James Bond films. I think he had a small part.
Was he a bad guy? Was he a Bond villain? A Jewish Bond villain?
I don't think he was a Bond villain. That would have been horrible if James Bond did that. But he passed away, so that's kind of sad. And also, I just want to talk about, of course, people are protesting. One of the biggest protests ever in Israel over the weekend, over 500,000 people taking the streets to try to put a stop to the judicial reforms that this new extremist government is trying to do.
Yeah.
But they don't care. They don't care. There's protests in Israel. There's protests here, and this new extremist government is going full steam ahead. And even today, they are attempting to pass laws to make it harder to for corrupt Netanyahu to be convicted on the charges that are against him.
I mean, it's one thing after another with Netanyahu. I mean, this is all just a big power grab, and he hasn't cared about what anybody has thought. He's definitely just staying his course the entire thing through.
Well, this is the only way that he's going to stay in power is if he agrees with these extremists. And also, he wants to get off these charges of being corrupt, which he is, and he claims no, he isn't, and he thinks it's just the media that's out to get him, which is bullshit. He's the only person that's out to get people, the Palestinian people. But anyways, he's horrible. And that is just happening today. That's how little they even care about what their own people are saying, taking the streets and being against these judicial reforms. And they're saying, no, we want to take the power away from the high court. We want to just give, the people that believe in the same things that we do when it comes to Israel, when it comes to Judaism. They kind of want to change the law. This guy, Smotrich, whatever, this Bezalel, whatever the freak his name is, he believes, he wants there to be Torah law in Israel. It's absolutely insane. I'm going to talk more about him, I think, on How You Like Me Now, but that guy's scum. But it's crazy that they're doing that even today. After everything, they're still trying to get Netanyahu so he doesn't get in trouble, and that only they have the power, only the Knesset will have the power to declare if a prime minister isn't fit, and it'd only be because of mental reasons or physical reasons, and not because he's a corrupt mofo.
I'll tell you this, though. It's really disappointing to hear this, that we've talked about this, about how some of these rules and some of these laws they're trying to enact are going to disenfranchise millions of Jews around the world that are not particularly religious. But at the same time, they're still trying to appeal to those people to stand up for them, to help them pass those laws.
I mean, it's kind of crazy. It is having that effect. I mean, it's almost like Israel's almost imploding right now because people are so against this new government, they're so against what they're trying to do with basically taking away the democracy that Israel has. And it's kind of like opening up a whole can of worms, because there are the people that are so upset about the judicial reforms. Then there are the people that are so upset about the occupation. These people are kind of meeting, and it's becoming more of a powerful force against Israel. And it's coming from Jews, not only in the diaspora, but in Israel themselves, that are taking the street, that do not support this government. And part of what this government wants to do is they want to take the power for themselves so they can have new settlements, so they could, have more control when Palestinian people do things that they view as horrible. And it's really sickening what's happening in Israel, and it's no bueno.
And they're not even really trying to hide what they're doing. That's the other thing. They're doing all this shit right out in the open. And when people are protesting against certain ideas that are in some of these laws they're trying to change, Netanyahu's even saying, "Oh, don't worry, we're not going to actually enforce that." Like, yeah, right. Like, how do you believe?
Yeah, you can't fall.
It's hard to figure out how you even, where do you draw the line? Like, where can you stand with these people on any issue?
No, he wants everyone to believe that the high courts, they're too liberal and they're anarchist right now. And what they're doing right now is to protect Israel, to take the power away from them before they do crazy things. And no, what they're doing is they're going to disrupt the checks and balances and sway who has the power in Israel. And it's going to be Netanyahu and his corrupt Knesset with idiots like this Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir. And it's just horrible.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Anyways, it's a sad state of affairs. I guess the more this, I have problems with Israel as it goes, but I feel like my problems are they're snowballing. They're becoming more and more with my issues of Israel, especially with this new government. And it's really sad. And I guess, maybe we should start talking about the Parshas.
I mean, it is a little.
That was before the Jews went to Israel. We haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten there yet.
Let's talk about a happier time. This week, double portion.
Double Parsha.
Double Parsha, 2 Parshas. So we're still reeling, I guess, from the whole golden calf thing.
Well, I have to say, the fact that he also has all of those attributes of mercy after the golden calf thing, it's a nice. It's a nice landing after that.
Well, he came up with that because Moses begged him, so then he had the attributes. So you think that's nice, but he's still not crazy. He doesn't forget that happened.
Right.
So Moses starts off, I guess the Parshas with he wants to reiterate the commandment of observing the Sabbath. He's like, hey, you guys didn't listen when I said don't obey any other gods. I want to make sure you know about this Sabbath thing.
Yeah.
Don't do it. And then he tells them God's instructions about building the tabernacle, which is kind of like God's home. And by the way, there are 6 Parshas in Exodus that are all about pretty much building God's home. God's like, we want to get this right. I want it a certain way. This is where
he's got real blueprints for it. I was thinking about that. I'm like, no wonder Jesus was a carpenter.
Oh, it's true. Oh, he has a whole plan.
The Son of God obviously is a carpenter. Needs to know how to build the shit.
This is like God's house on TLC, okay? There's a lot of pressure. He wants it exactly a certain way. He wants certain people to do it. He wants Bezalel to do it. Bezalel's in charge of making. It's crazy that guy is named after him, and he's so, in the media right now, and this is this week's Parsha. But I guess he's one of the best artisans and God's like, I want him.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of pressure right there. He's like, I don't want to make God's house. Can't I start something smaller? And then he appoints God's assistant to some other guy who is really good at carpentry and weaving and embroidery.
Yeah.
Embroidery? What was that about? Embroidery. And they're like, these are the guys that are going to make the tabernacle, which is good, God's traveling house. As the Jews travel through the desert, this is where they set up where God's going to come. And I guess,
it's pretty fancy too. A lot of gold, a lot of silver, fancy. A lot of jewels.
I guess, since God, it was so important to him, we should maybe talk about it a little bit. First of all, there's an inner chamber.
Right.
That's where the holiest of holies is. That's where the Ark of the Covenant, most popularly known from Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, that's where that goes, in the Holy of Holies place. And then there's an outer chamber where they have showbread. Did you hear about showbread?
Yeah, the showbread was weird. It's like, you put it, I guess I've always kind of known about wait till company comes, that kind of.
Okay, I wasn't familiar about showbread, but apparently, showbread is bread that Jews had to just be nice to people, like, oh, decorative cakes or something that they had around the house. That's what they were.
We've graduated to wax fruit by now, I'm sure.
And I love how, so there's a table for showbread. God gives that in the instructions. He's like, y'all are going to be bringing me showbread, okay? I want decorative cakes in my house all the time. Like, he's kind of like hinting to the Jewish people right there. And the table for showbread. And they're like, oh, I guess we gotta, I guess we gotta make sure to be bringing God showbread all the time. They have a special table.
Yeah, he's got a lot of specifications of what he wants, God. And he's very much, he wants us to like really count out all of the gold that we have too.
Well, yeah, of course he wants it in gold or silver. He wants it to be very nice. There's a 7-branch menorah because this is pre-Hanukkah.
Right.
So only 7 branches. That's in the tabernacle, the Mishkan.
The Mishkan, right.
The Mishkan, God's house. And he has a fancy incense thing too,
Right, with all the different oils.
And then like when they set it all up, there's like a cloud that appears there.
I know,
or is that just the incense?
I mean, you would think that after spending all that time, that you would. It's weird to think that a cloud hanging over a head is a good omen. Like, oh,
right? But no, they're like, oh, God's here in His house right now. We better be good. And by the way, I think so. They're building this and like. God asked for all this stuff, but the Jews, I guess, are feeling so bad about the whole golden calf thing that they're given everything that Moses has to be like, okay, enough. Like they're trying to overcompensate right there.
Right.
And Moses is like, oh, we have enough, everybody. It's cool.
It's interesting how the Jews reacted to that. It's definitely.
So yeah, and I don't like this cloud, Like, what is this, like Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer? We want to see Galactus. We don't want to see a goddamn cloud. We want to see some sort of God thing. It's just like, oh, there's the cloud. I guess God's home right now. Like, can't we do better than a cloud?
I feel like it's easily one of those things where these Jews, after being yelled at by God and by Moses, like, they're just going to go along with anything. Oh, that cloud means God's here. So, you got me.
God's here, but we all better be good in the tabernacle.
Otherwise, he'll rain on you.
Travels around, like we don't know what he's going to do. Probably worse than that. But it's like God is very into his house. He's very into the way this is built. He's very picky. A little too much. Six whole parshas about it. And he gives a description like over and over again. Like God gives a description to Moses, and then Moses gives a description to the Jews. And actually, it's through the instructions of the tabernacle that the Jews decipher like some of the things they can't do on Shabbat. Because they're like, oh wait, what are we supposed to do on Shabbat? What do we know? And then they're like, oh, God told us not to build like this parts of the tabernacle on Shabbat, so we know we can't do that type of work on Shabbat.
Right. I mean, listen, the fact that God has all these specifications and still gives the Jews a day off,
Well, that's good, right? He's like, I want it perfect. No working on Saturday, though. He's like, we all got to chill on Saturday. Even you, Bezalel, you get to hang out that one day. And this Bezalel's guy's like, oh my gosh, in thousands of years, some idiot's going to be named my name, and he's going to be part of the downfall of the Jewish people. And this guy's just like, he's like Queer Eye of the Straight Bible or whatever, Bezalel.
I tell you, this is the part of the Bible that I wish had some pictures, that it could definitely. I would like to see.
Oh, you want to see more what God's house looks like? I mean, you can see like drawings, like people like drew up like what he was saying in the Bible. Like,
I know, but I'd like to see it while we're reading it. Like the IKEA version.
Oh, you want to see the IKEA vision? Okay.
It's how many cubits and how many.
Well, hey, yeah. I mean, just like IKEA, the Jews had to build it themselves.
Although, we haven't gotten to any problems yet with like the foundation or, with the pipes. I feel like, you watch any of those design shows on HGTV, halfway through, they run out of budget because of some, some issue.
Yeah, thankfully there weren't a lot of pipes in the desert where they were doing it. It wasn't like there were any bathrooms or anything. I think there was like an outer part where like the priests could like wash themselves or something like that, but I don't think they had plumbing going on.
Right. They didn't have any plumbing, but
no.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, not a lot of rules on where to take a shit in the Bible.
I think there probably are some rules in it, but I don't know if we've got to them. They're definitely not in this week's 2 double parshas.
No, definitely.
But this is it, the end of Exodus.
The end of Exodus.
So, onward. The Jews made it out, and we're still in the desert. I think we know where the story ends up. But it's crazy that people think that this is fact. These are stories a lot of people believe that they should just be interpreted. But there are some people that think like this actually happened, that now Moses is leading the Jews to Israel, and, that's why the Jews, are entitled to Israel or whatever.
Well, ultimately, it takes us 40 years to get there.
It does.
So, we're definitely not on easy street.
But, there's problems along the way. It's not just like God is not just like taking us in circles, but like, the Jews do some bad stuff. We had to stop to get the 10 Commandments.
Yeah. I mean, and we stop and complain every chance we can also. It seems like.
That's what it means to be a Jew,
That-
apparently.
that's
In the
what-
Bible, the Jews they're complaining, they're going behind God's back. They're doing a lot of not such great things. And unfortunately, they're still doing not such great things, but we're hoping to do better.
Listen, I'm hoping that that there are more. The fact that there are all these protests happening in Israel about what's happening in the government is good. The tide is turning on public opinion about that stuff, and I think that the more information comes out about what they're trying to do, and the more people push back against it, the better chance we have of somebody rising through the ranks that might actually create some change.
I mean, I hope so. I mean, definitely, I guess kind of the silver lining is like all these horrible things happening, but people are having a greater awareness of what's going on. There is this ignorance that comes to Israel, especially with the Jewish people, that I think is being like exposed a little more, and people are being a little more educated and understand like what really is happening, opposed to just what they've been spoon-fed all their lives.
Yeah. And I think also, looking at this parsha, it's clear that, there are parts of the Torah that are very specific in terms of what God wants, like his house, and the stuff that he has to keep reiterating because we keep screwing it up.
Yeah, he has to tell us over and over again.
So, I mean, it's nice to know that even from the beginning, we're an ever-evolving work in progress. We're still trying to get it right.
Just like we are here at the American Jew Podcast. We're still trying to get it right, but we appreciate everybody who supports, listens, follows us, comments on our videos on social media. If you're not following us, please do at American Jew Podcast pretty much across all social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Spotify, our iTunes, everything. And of course, you can check me out across social media at Jonathan Randall.
You could always follow me across social media at Beatnik Nudnik. You can follow my other podcast, Where's the Grief? And know that, we put lots of clips up online, but if you listen to the full podcast, there's so much information jam-packed into every episode. We made it just for you. And that's going to do it for Exodus.
We're leaving.
We're out of here.